For 12 years, James Rivera went to Murphy's Pub every Friday night. He'd sit in the same corner booth, order the same beer, Miller Lite, draft, and watch the fights on the TV above the bar. The bartenders knew him. The regulars nodded hello, but nobody really paid attention to the quiet man in his late 60s who nursed one beer for 3 hours and left a generous tip. He looked like someone's grandfather. Worn jeans, flannel shirt, reading glasses perched on his nose when he checked his phone. Harmless, forgettable. Until 3 drunk college kids decided the old man sitting alone in the corner booth would be easy entertainment. They started with insults, escalated to threats, and when the biggest one, 6'2", 220 pounds of alcohol-fueled bravado, grabbed James by the collar and pulled him out of his seat, the bartender reached for the phone to call 911. She never made the call, because 15 seconds later, all 3 college kids were on the floor. One unconscious, one whimpering with a dislocated shoulder, one curled in the fetal position trying to remember how to breathe. And James Rivera, 69 years old, former Master Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, Force Reconnaissance, was calmly sitting back down in his booth, picking up his beer like nothing had happened. If this story of hidden lethality and instant justice already has you hooked, hit that like button and subscribe. What happens when 3 young men learn that the most dangerous person in the room is the quiet one they didn't respect will remind you that some skills never fade. Now, let's go back to that Friday night at Murphy's Pub where 15 seconds of violence taught a lesson that will last a lifetime. Murphy's Pub sat 3 blocks from Camp Lejeune, which meant it got a steady stream of Marines on the weekends. Young guys fresh from deployment blowing off steam, older NCOs escaping their families for a few hours, the occasional officer trying to blend in. The owner, Patrick Murphy, was a retired Marine himself. Gunnery Sergeant, 22 years, 2 tours in Desert Storm. He ran a tight ship. No fights, no drama. You caused trouble, you were banned for life. Simple rules, clearly posted. But Murphy knew that Friday nights were always a gamble. Mix alcohol, testosterone, and young warriors who'd just survived combat, and sometimes things got heated. That's why he kept a baseball bat behind the bar and had the local police on speed dial. On this particular Friday in November, the bar was moderately busy. Maybe 30 patrons. A mix of Marines in civilian clothes, some locals, a few college kids from the community college down the road. At exactly 1900 hours, James Rivera still thought in military time even after 25 years of retirement. He walked through the door. Same routine he'd followed every Friday for 12 years. Nod to Murphy behind the bar. Take the corner booth by the window. Order a Miller Lite draft. Watch the MMA fights on the big screen. Sit quietly. Bother no one. James was 69 years old but didn't look it. He moved with the kind of careful precision that came from decades of staying in shape. At 5'10" and 175 pounds, he wasn't imposing. His gray hair was cut short. His face was weathered but unremarkable. He wore jeans, a flannel shirt, and work boots that had seen better years. Nothing about him screamed warrior. Nothing suggested he'd spent 25 years in one of the most elite units in the Marine Corps. Nothing hinted that his body was a weapon system trained to kill. Efficiently and without hesitation, he looked like a retired factory worker, a grandfather, someone's uncle who fixed cars on the weekend, which was exactly how he wanted to look. Miller Lite, James. Murphy called from behind the bar. Yes, sir. Thank you. Murphy poured the beer and brought it over personally. He was one of the few people at the bar who knew what James had done in the Corps. Not the details. Those were classified and would remain so until long after both men were dead, but enough to know that the quiet man in the corner booth had seen things, done things. that most Marines never experienced. "Fights start in 20 minutes, Murphy said, setting the beer down. "Appreciate it, Gunny. You need anything else, you let me know." James settled in, sipping his beer slowly. On the TV, the pre-fight commentary was already analyzing the main event, a welterweight championship bout that had the MMA world buzzing. He wasn't really watching it for the fights, though. He came here for the routine, the familiar environment, the sense of being around military people without having to be military anymore. Retirement had been hard. 25 years in Force Recon, then suddenly, nothing. Civilian life, a small house, a pension. Too much quiet. Murphy's pub helped. Being around Marines, even young ones who didn't know him, felt like home. The bar filled up as the night went on. The noise level rose. More Marines arrived in groups, claiming tables, ordering pitchers. The energy was good, loud but controlled. James watched it all from his corner booth, anonymous and content. That's when they walked in. 3 college kids, early 20s, baseball caps worn backward, tank tops despite the November chill, the swagger of young men who'd been pre-gaming for hours and thought they owned the world. The loud one, the leader, was named Tyler Prescott, though James wouldn't learn that until later. He was 6'2", maybe 220 pounds, played linebacker for the community college football team. His 2 friends were smaller, followers, the kind who laughed at every joke and backed every play. They were drunk. Not falling down drunk, but that aggressive drunk where everything was funny and nothing had consequences. Murphy saw them enter, and his jaw tightened. He recognized the type. Trouble looking for a place to happen. "Gentlemen," Murphy said as they approached the bar. "IDs, please." "Come on, old man," Tyler slurred. "We're clearly over 21. IDs?" "House rules." They showed their IDs, all legitimately over 21. Murphy served them beer but made a mental note to watch them closely. Tyler and his friends grabbed their drinks and surveyed the bar like predators selecting prey. Their eyes passed over the groups of Marines, too many, too dangerous, and landed on the solo occupants. And there, in the corner booth, sat an old man, alone, small, wearing reading glasses, watching the TV like he was at home in his living room. Tyler elbowed his friend and grinned. "Watch this." James noticed them approaching before they'd taken 3 steps. Situational awareness was a skill drilled into Force Recon Marines until it became instinct. He'd already cataloged every person in the bar, identified all exits, assessed potential threats. These 3 weren't threats in the traditional sense. They were drunk, stupid, and looking for entertainment. But they were moving toward him with purpose. He took another sip of his beer and kept his eyes on the TV. Maybe they'd walk past. Maybe they'd lose interest. They didn't. "Hey, old-timer," Tyler said, stopping at James's booth. His voice was loud, designed to attract attention. Several people turned to watch. "This is our booth. We come here every Friday." James looked up slowly. His face was neutral, his voice calm. "I've been sitting here every Friday for 12 years. Never seen you before. Well, we're here now. So move." James took another sip of his beer. "I'm good here, thanks. Plenty of other seats available." Tyler's friends laughed. This was going exactly as their drunk brains had planned. Public entertainment. "Make the old man squirm. I don't think you heard me, Grandpa," Tyler said, his voice rising. "This is our booth." Murphy was already moving from behind the bar, his hand reaching for his phone. He'd seen this movie before. It never ended well. But James raised one hand slightly, a small gesture that somehow conveyed both acknowledgement and request for patience. Murphy paused, phone in hand, watching carefully. "Son," James said quietly, "I really don't want any trouble. I'm just here to watch the fights and enjoy my beer. There are empty tables right over there. Why don't you and your friends... Why don't you shut the fuck up and move, old man?" The bar had gone quiet now. Even the Marines at the other tables were watching. This was the moment it would either de-escalate or explode. James set his beer down carefully, took off his reading glasses, folded them and placed them on the table next to his phone. "You should walk away," James said. His voice hadn't changed, still calm, still quiet, but something in his tone made Tyler's friends take an instinctive step back. Tyler didn't notice. He was too drunk, too committed to the performance. "Or what, old man? You gonna fight me?" He laughed, looking around for approval from the audience. "You're like, what, 70? I could..." He grabbed James by the collar of his flannel shirt and yanked him out of the booth. It was the last voluntary movement Tyler Prescott would make for the next 15 seconds. What happened next would be captured on Murphy's security cameras and replayed thousands of times on YouTube, analyzed frame by martial arts experts and military combat instructors. The moment Tyler's hands touched James's collar, the old man transformed. There was no hesitation, no warning, no mercy. James's right hand came up and trapped Tyler's hands against his own chest, a basic Krav Maga grip break that prevented Tyler from letting go even if he'd wanted to. Simultaneously, James's left hand shot forward, palm-heel strike to Tyler's nose. The crack was audible across the bar. Tyler's nose exploded. Blood sprayed. His eyes watered involuntarily, blinding him. But James wasn't done. He was just getting started. Still holding Tyler's hands trapped, James stepped to the side and swept Tyler's right leg with his own. The bigger man fell hard, face first toward the floor, unable to catch himself because James controlled his arms. Tyler hit the wooden floor like a dropped sack of concrete. Time elapsed. 3 seconds. Tyler's first friend, the one on the left, a kid named Brandon, tried to jump in. His drunk brain saw his friend go down and reacted on instinct. He threw a wild haymaker toward James's head. James slipped it easily. Just a small head movement, minimal energy expended, and countered with a short, brutal elbow strike to Brandon's ribs. The air left Brandon's lungs in a whoosh. He doubled over, gasping. James grabbed the back of Brandon's head and drove his knee into the kid's face. Once. Hard. Professional. Brandon dropped beside Tyler, curled in the fetal position, hands over his face, making sounds that weren't quite words. Time elapsed. 7 seconds. The third friend, Marcus, was smarter or more sober. He backed up, hands raised. "Whoa, man, we're done. But Tyler was trying to get up. Still fighting. Still dangerous. James stepped over Brandon, grabbed Tyler by the back of his shirt, and applied an arm lock that had been taught to Force Recon Marines for close-quarters combat, a technique designed to control enemy combatants without killing them. Tyler's shoulder joint reached its maximum range of motion and then exceeded it. The pop was sickening. Tyler screamed, a high, piercing sound of pure agony. James held the lock for exactly 2 seconds, enough time for the pain to fully register, for Tyler to understand he was completely helpless, then released him and stepped back. Tyler collapsed, his dislocated shoulder useless, crying now, the alcohol-fueled bravado completely shattered. Time elapsed, 15 seconds. James straightened his flannel shirt, picked up his reading glasses from the table, put them back on, sat back down in his booth, picked up his beer. The bar was absolutely silent. Murphy stood behind the bar, phone still in his hand, staring. The Marines at the other tables sat frozen, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. And on the floor, 3 college kids learned a lesson about respect that they'd carry for the rest of their lives. Murphy was the first to move. He came around the bar quickly, but not toward James, toward the 3 kids on the floor. "Don't move," he said, his voice carrying the authority of 22 years as a Marine. "Marcus, you're okay. Sit down at that table and don't move. Tyler, Brandon, stay down. Ambulance is on the way." He'd already hit the panic button under the bar that automatically called 911 and alerted local police to an incident. Marcus stumbled to a chair, his face pale, hands shaking. He kept looking at James like the old man might attack again. James took another sip of his beer and turned his attention back to the TV. The main event was starting. A young Marine, couldn't be more than 23, fresh-faced, probably on his first enlistment, approached James's booth cautiously. "Sir." His voice was respectful, uncertain. What unit were you with?" James looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the EO3-1 infantry tattoo on the kid's forearm. Saw the deployment tan that hadn't faded yet. Saw the cautious respect of a young warrior who'd just witnessed something he didn't fully understand. "Force Recon," James said quietly. "Long time ago." The young Marine's eyes widened. "Holy shit. Sir, I'm sorry, but that was..." "How did you..." "Training," James said simply. "And they were drunk. Made it easy." "Easy?" The Marine laughed, shook his head. "Sir, I just watched you take out 3 guys in like 10 seconds. That wasn't easy. That was..." He trailed off, not having words for it. Another Marine approached. Older, maybe 30, with the bearing of an NCO. He stuck out his hand. "Corporal Diaz, sir. 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines. Just wanted to say, that was the most professional handling of a situation I've seen outside of combat." James shook his hand. "They gave me no choice." "You gave them plenty of chances, sir. We all saw it. You tried to de-escalate. Multiple times, more Marines gathered around now, not crowding but forming a loose protective circle, showing support, showing respect. One of them, a female sergeant with sharp eyes and an air of competence, said, "Sir, when the cops get here, they're going to want statements. You want us to tell them what we saw? That would be appreciated, Sergeant." "You got it. And, sir?" She nodded toward the 3 kids on the floor. "They started it. Everyone here will testify to that." James nodded his thanks. Sirens approached outside. 2 sheriff's deputies entered, followed quickly by paramedics. The scene was chaotic for a moment. Paramedics attending to the injured, deputies trying to understand what happened, Murphy explaining from behind the bar. One of the deputies, an older man with a gray mustache and the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen everything, approached James's booth. "Sir, I'm Deputy Williams. I need to get your statement about what happened here." "Of course." James stood, respectful. "Old habits. You're James Rivera." "Yes, sir." "And you're the one who handled these 3 young men?" "In self-defense, yes, sir. They assaulted me. I defended myself." Williams looked at Tyler being loaded onto a stretcher, his shoulder clearly dislocated, his nose a bloody mess. Looked at Brandon, conscious but dazed, holding his ribs. Looked at Marcus, uninjured but traumatized. Then he looked at James. At the lack of any injury. At the calmness. At the fact that this 69-year-old man had systematically dismantled 3 men half his age without breaking a sweat. "Mr. Rivera, I'm going to need to see your hands." James held them out. "No cuts, no bruising, no swelling. You have any injuries we should document?" "No, sir." Williams wrote that down. "And your military background?" 25 years Marine Corps, Force Recon, retired 1998. The deputy's pen paused. He looked up. "Force Recon?" "Yes, sir," Williams nodded slowly. He'd been in the Army himself back in the day. He knew what Force Recon meant. Élite reconnaissance. Deep operations. The guys who went in first and came out last. I'm going to need detailed statements from you and all the witnesses. But preliminarily, Mr. Rivera, it looks like clear self-defense. They grabbed you first? Yes, sir. The big one, Tyler, grabbed me by the collar and pulled me out of the booth. I responded with appropriate force to defend myself. Appropriate force, Williams repeated, glancing again at the 3 injured young men. Sir, one of them has a broken nose, possible concussion. One has at least 2 broken ribs and facial trauma. One has a dislocated shoulder. And you don't have a scratch. They attacked me, Deputy. I defended myself efficiently. My training taught me how to end threats quickly with minimal risk to myself. Murphy approached with a tablet. Deputy, you want to see the security footage? Might make your job easier. Williams watched the footage 3 times. Each time his expression grew more amazed. Jesus Christ, he muttered. That's Mr. Rivera. I've been a cop for 28 years. I've never seen anything like that. 3-on-1, you're almost 70 years old, and you took them down in 15 seconds like they were children. They were children, Deputy. Drunk children who made a bad choice. I didn't want to hurt them. But when they grabbed me, I didn't have a choice. Williams closed his tablet. Well, sir, based on the footage and the witness statements, this is clear-cut self-defense. You're free to go. Though I suspect those 3 boys are going to be charged with assault. That's up to you, Deputy. I'm not interested in pressing charges. They learned their lesson. With respect, sir, the state might press charges anyway. You don't assault people and get away with it. Especially when he gestured at James. When the person you assault is clearly capable of ending you. After the deputies left with their statements and the paramedics transported Tyler and Brandon to the hospital, Murphy approached James's booth with a fresh beer. On the house, he said. Appreciate it, Gunny. Murphy sat down across from him. You held back. I did. You could have killed all 3 of them. Yes. Why didn't you? James took a sip of the fresh beer. They were drunk kids making a stupid mistake. They didn't deserve to die for it. They just needed to learn respect. You think they learned? They'll never forget, Murphy nodded. Force Recon, 25 years. I should have guessed. I tried to tell them to walk away. You did. Everyone saw it. You gave them multiple chances. They chose violence. And I responded with training. Murphy was quiet for a moment. How old are you now, James? 69. And you can still do that? After all these years? Training like that doesn't leave you, Gunny. It's muscle memory. Reflexes. The body remembers even when the mind forgets. You train still? 3 times a week. Garage gym. Nothing fancy. But I stay sharp. I can see that. One of the young Marines approached again. Sir, can I ask you something? Go ahead. What you did? That was Force Recon CQC training. Close quarters combat, yes. Mixed with some Krav Maga and old-school Marine Corps martial arts. We trained constantly. Had to be able to defend ourselves and complete missions even if we lost our weapons. Would you be willing to teach some of us? We do MC map training on base, but what you did was different, more effective. James considered it. He'd been retired for 25 years. Hadn't taught combat techniques since his last deployment. Wasn't sure he wanted to get back into that world, but looking at these young Marines, the same age he'd been when he joined Force Recon, he saw something familiar. The desire to be better, to learn from those who'd been there before. Tell you what, James said. You and anyone else interested, meet me here next Friday. Same time. I'll show you some basics. But you have to understand that what I did tonight, that was last resort, when you have no other choice. We understand, sir. And one more thing. You call me James, not sir. I work for a living." The Marines laughed. Old joke. Good joke. After they left, Murphy leaned forward. "You know word's going to spread, right? About what happened here tonight." "I figured. You okay with that?" James thought about it. For 12 years, he'd been anonymous. Just another old guy in the corner booth, invisible. Tonight, that anonymity was gone. Everyone in that bar now knew what he'd been, what he could still do. "It is what it is, Gunny. I didn't ask for trouble, but I didn't run from it either." "No, you sure as hell didn't." On the TV above the bar, the main event fight was reaching its conclusion. A technical knockout in the 4th round. The crowd in the arena on screen was going wild. In Murphy's pub, the crowd was still talking about a different fight. One that had lasted 15 seconds and proved that some warriors never stop being dangerous. James finished his second beer, left a generous tip, and stood to leave. "Same time next Friday?" Murphy asked. "Wouldn't miss it." As James walked to the door, every person in the bar watched him. Not with fear, with respect. The young Marine who'd asked about training called out, James, thank you." "For what?" "For showing us what it means to be a professional. To stay calm. To only use violence as a last resort, but to be absolutely ready when that last resort comes." James nodded. "That's what we do, Marine. That's what we've always done." He walked out into the November night. His truck was parked in the same spot it always was. The drive home would take 12 minutes, same as always. But something had changed. The anonymity was gone. The secret was out, and maybe, just maybe, that was okay. Maybe it was time to stop being invisible. Time to pass on the knowledge he'd spent 25 years accumulating. Time to teach these young Marines the difference between fighting and combat, between bravado and skill, between violence and precision. His phone buzzed with a text from a number he didn't recognize. "Sir, this is Corporal Diaz. Got your number from Murphy. 15 Marines want to train with you next Friday. Is that okay?" James smiled and typed back, "Make it 0900 Saturday. Murphy's parking lot. Bring workout clothes and an open mind. And stop calling me sir." The response came immediately. "Roger that. Thank you, James." James drove home thinking about the next generation, about passing the torch, about the responsibility to teach not just how to fight, but when to fight, when to walk away, when to de-escalate, and when to absolutely, completely, professionally end the threat in 15 seconds. Because some skills never fade, some training never leaves you, and some warriors never stop being dangerous. They just get quieter about it.